with me to heaven, to the halls of records. I think I was going to the ninth grade. I just defeated the number one karate heavyweight in the world in an all out street fight. I think I was 130, no, 128 pounds. He was like 200 and something pounds. And he knocked on my door. Somehow I beat him, you know, pretty badly. Not just unanimous up by point. I beat him like a TKO, you know. But a couple of weeks later, my angel come and she say, "Do you feel like coming to heaven, David? God asked me to take you to the house of record." I said, "Why?" "I will tell you when you get there." So we go to this library looking place. Some of it were up in the clouds. The other half were up to the moon, out of space. It looked like a big library except for it didn't have floors. No floors. We gravitated. But it seemed funny. We were gravitating, right? But it seemed like we were walking on floors, but there were no floors. So we get to this section. It was the tall columns with a bunch of architect paper in them, like parchment paper, dark blue or black, with schematics on it. And that schematic was your life journey for that life. And she say, "These are your past lives, David." Looked like it was millions of past lives. And I say, all of them were my lives? She said, "Yes, David. I've been your angel for millions of years. And these are your past lives. These are your present life." And I hold up the present life. And she said, "What are you looking for?" I said, "Well, I think it'd be nice if I know the day I was going to die." She said, "Expiration date? Why would you want to see that?" Well, I don't know. She said, "I think I'm going to have to ask God permission first. But I think it would be a bad idea because it could affect your journey. But if you want me to, I will ask God and we wouldn't take it no further from him." So no, don't ask, no ask him. I don't want to know. Just make sure it quick. Then she said, "These are your future lives." Looked like it was almost a million lives to go. And I say, "Man, I don't want to live this many times, man." And she say, "When you go in front of God, David, to sign your contract, it's not like humans think that you sign a contract for one life. You sign a contract for all of your life, which accumulate to eternal life. But all your life, you don't be successful. And you have to repeat. Some entities repeat for millions of years, David, until they get it right. But you have to have a certain amount of life credits to gain eternal life status. And that will be the closest you can be to God. Because you decide what you do. You decide if you want to come back to earth or not. But if you do decide to come back to earth, you never lose your eternal status, because that's a contract and a deal you made with God. Once you complete that contract, you gain eternal life status. It is something earned and not given. So I say, why do God want me to see this? She said, God say, for your present mission, you must have no fear of death whatsoever, David. And if your mission successful, it's going to be very important how you die, David. Very important. So that was my trip to the Halls of Record. And I still didn't know what my journey was, even when I was in my journey. But 10 years after my journey, I got a phone call from the President of the United States of America. And his first question to me was, did you have help from the other side, son? I say, well, what you mean the other side? He said, normally we don't contact the history maker. We keep it a secret for 100, 200 years so we can own all the history rights. Then we go to making movies and all kind of stuff to go over everything about them. And we keep all the money. But in your case, I went against all presidential protocol because we can't figure out how you alive. None of the experts, they all are stunned. And I told them, you had to have help from the other side. No way a person did all these things what you did. It was so amazing. We had to do the research 3 years in a row because we couldn't believe it. But 3,000 witnesses can't lie. They never seen each other since college. If we interviewed them 3 years in a row, they all saying the same thing. And from what they saying, you ain't real. They say they have seen you die. And they go to eat breakfast the next morning. You the first person in the lunchroom like nothing ever happened. Not even a scratch. So tell me, son, did you have help from the other side? I said, yes, sir, Mr. President, I was raised in both worlds, right? You can hear him cheering in the background and all that. And then we talked for a long time, and then he say, son, do you want to know how you're going to die? I say, I already know how I'm going to die, Mr. President. I'm going to be murdered by the medical industry. And remember, I never been in the hospital when I told him that. I never been in the hospital. And he said, you close. We're in the same area. He said, but the experts say you're going to see the medical industry and every other industry. You're going to see past the BS. He said, son, you're a natural born profiler, and we would love for you to come work for the federal government just to sit in the courtroom to tell us who lied and who not. He said, but you're a natural profiler. And I already knew that. But they said because I was a slave and I'm in a racist industry. But my mama and all my brother got the same gift. You can't fool us. You can't lie to us. We see past that. But he said what the angels say. Son, it's very important how you die. I said, why, Mr. President? He said, you wrote history. So your story got to have an ending. And he said, you can take the fear of death from all the kids and grown up around the world. So I want you to remember that. It's very important how you die. You must show no fear. And right then, I'm like, 10 years 10 years ago, my angel told me that. They said the same thing. And that my journey to heaven, a president and an angel. Thank you and God bless.